Hi, Lowell, owner of Catalina Direct. We're out on the water today to make a template of the windows on your boat. As many of you have noticed over time, they start getting crazed or chalky, and especially on the earlier boats that use the screws to hold the lens in place while the sealant was curing, the windows have cracked right where the screws are. You may notice that on newer boats, Catalina stopped using the screws and instead used a jig to hold the window in place while the sealant cured. The screws were not necessary to hold it after the sealant cured. Its adhesive characteristics are plenty strong enough to hold it in place, but somehow you have to hold it in place while it's curing. We attempted doing a rubbing using different weights of graphite and different kinds of paper, but we decided none of it was accurate enough to get a good shape for the finished product. The accuracy of your template is going to affect the proper size of the lens itself when it's the finished product, because we only have what you send us to go by. We found that if we just took our fingernail, we could go up to the edge of the lens and just follow the lens itself. Now you can feel where the edge of the lens is, and then take your fingernail and go right around the curves. And that seemed to be more accurate because you have sealant, you have the curve of the recess in the boat itself. Sometimes the sealant is proud of the lens, sometimes it's recessed, but with your finger and your fingernail, you can actually feel the edge of the lens better. And you can go along and feel with your finger and then use your fingernail to get quite an accurate score along the edge of the actual plexiglass. And that's what we're going to use to make your final lens from. Okay, this is our first attempt at trimming it. So notice we've taken scissors and we've cut out our template, and we're looking really good here. But down here, there's a bit of a fail. So we're going to have to correct that. Notice here at the corner, we're not quite right. So we're going to have to trim the corner with our scissors. Also here, we're a little bit too close to the edge. If we made the lens to this template, it would be a little too wide. Notice that the lens fits back a little. Now also, this is a perfect place to notice too, it doesn't have to be absolutely accurate. Notice how thin the line of sealant is here and how thick it is here. You have a little bit of latitude there. Let's look at it here. Real thin here, real thick here. So the width can be taken up by the sealant to some extent, although obviously if we make the window too big, the lens is too large for the spot, it's not going to work. But you probably can't see it, but inside the boat, the amount of surface area that is glued to the boat comes clear up to my little finger here. So you've got sealant from there to there, and from here down to there, and from here to here. So if it's an 1/8 inch narrow here, it doesn't matter because you still have an inch of sealant space in there that's getting a good bond to the boat. Now I mentioned earlier that you have to somehow hold this lens in against the boat, and because the boat has a little bit of curve to it, it doesn't just want to sit there by itself. So on our website and in the kit, you will find the original drawings of the way Catalina made a jig to hold this into the boat. The jig is pretty complicated and maybe overkill. We've had a lot of customers say they just used a couple of sandbags and put them on here, but of course the sandbags are going to fall off, so you need some sticks, some chunks of wood that you've prepared in advance to go from the gunnel here into the sandbags to hold some weight, and the weight will both be pushing it'll want to be pushing down, falling down because of gravity. The stick is going to be holding it in, so you're going to end up pushing in against the lens to hold it in place. So if you really want to be sure, use the factory's template that's the drawing that's shown, or try the sandbag trick. You might dry fit that before the final stage of putting it in with sealant all over the place. The other trick with sealant on a boat, it's like red paint. It's going to get everywhere. So use a lot of masking tape. Mask the edge of the plex, mask the edge of the boat where you don't want any sealant, and do the same thing inside. So you can use plenty of sealant. It'll ooze out some, but it'll just go onto the tape, and you can use like a popsicle stick or a tongue depressor to make a nice fillet, radiused fillet where the seam is. Notice now, after trimming our template, we've got a better shape here to match the original. You can see here we've left gap here and here, and we've got a nice curve. So now we have a great template to use to cut the exact same shape to some plex for your new lenses. One last step. We have to identify which window it is that we're making of the set. So obviously, depending upon the boat, there's going to be more or less windows. I'm going to mark this one starboard, STBD, and I'm going to say this is the outside, OUTSIDE. So if you have a larger boat, you might have starboard middle, starboard forward, starboard aft. Be sure to mark them for us. Okay, now that we have the starboard side template complete, don't forget to do the port side. There's no guarantee that they're going to be identical port and starboard. Sometimes as the boat comes out of the mold, a little bit of damage happens around the window recess in the mold. The factory has to hand repair it, so there can be some shift over time. That's why we have you make a template each time, so that we're sure we're getting it just right for you. So take your time, do it well, because remember that the finished product can only be as good as your template is. So trim the template, hold it up again against the boat, be sure that it's correct, and we'll make it to your template. Okay, thanks.